Welcome to this video lecture. Here we will be discussing about structure of answer writing and strategy for presentation of answers. So, have you ever written an answer that you thought was perfect but it still didn't score well? Many students know the content but struggle to present it effectively in exams. Why does it happen? Did you know that how you structure your answer can impact your score as much as the content itself? So, a proper systematic structure of answer presentation is an essential element to score good marks in competitive exams. Answer writing is not just about knowledge, it's about clarity, precision, and structure. Examiners don't just look at what you write, but how you present it matters more. So, let's get started. The step 1 is, firstly, you have to read the question carefully. Possibly read it twice. Then underline the keywords and try to understand what has been focused and what has been questioned in the question. Then identify the type of question it is. Focus on derivatives like discuss, evaluate, or critically examine, or compare, contrast, like that. Then here I will be telling you about types of questions and the way you have to approach while answering that question. Suppose if the question is about discuss, here you have to provide a balanced view with multiple perspectives rather than just providing a simple argument. If the question is about critically examine, in this question you have to analyze strengths, weaknesses, and limitations and delimitations. Then if it is about evaluate type of questions, here you have to assess the effectiveness with supporting evidences, examples, or the case studies. If it is about analyze, if the question is about analyze, here you need to break down the concept and examine its components in a systematic manner. If the question is about compare and contrast, here you have to highlight similarities and differences systematically. So, after identifying the type of question and after deciding the approach based on this table, you have to break down the question. Determine the demand of the question, like whether it is conceptual or whether it is asking you about the argumentation or empirical example, or whether it is asking you to evaluate or analyze or critically examine, or whether it is telling you to discuss or compare. Based on that, you have to break down the question. Then decide the scope, like you have to identify the relevant concepts and theories and case studies, whichever is relevant to the question. So, as we know that a well-organized answer should have 3 main parts. The first one is the introduction, the second explanation, and a conclusion. So, firstly, let's talk about introduction. Introduction should consist at least 10 to 15%. It means it should be around 7 to 9 lines. It should be a paragraph. Here you need to provide a brief outlook or a background about the specific concept or the phenomenon, whichever is asked in the question. You can define key terms if needed, like the meaning or the definitions given by the scholars or the thinkers. And you can also explain it in layman terms. You can also mention the significance of the topic. For example, let us take, for instance, if the question is about globalization and state sovereignty. In such type of question, you can give the introduction by providing the definition of sovereignty and globalization. Then further you can proceed for explanation. Now, the part 2 is discussion or explanation. As you know that this is the core of your answer, and it should have a logical and systematic flow. Here what you need to do is, first you have to provide conceptual explanation. Define and elaborate on the main concept which is asked. Then give the theoretical perspective. You need to use the relevant theories, scholars or models and try to underline them. Then provide arguments and counter arguments. Like, you need to provide multiple perspectives here. Then also try to provide relevant examples or case studies. You try to mention the empirical evidences or historical events or contemporary issues. Then another thing is comparison. If it is applicable to the question, like it is a question about compare or contrast, you can also make here comparison. Compare different approaches or policies, whichever is relevant. Then you can also provide the data and facts from government reports or any official statements. Then you can also provide diagrams, flowcharts and mind maps, as visual representation enhances your answer clarity. Then the third and final part of answer presentation is conclusion. As it was in introduction, like it should be around 10 to 15% of your answer. The same thing is with conclusion. It should also be 7 to 9 lines. It should be a paragraph. Here you have to summarize the key points and try to avoid the repeated statements and arguments. In conclusion, you need to provide a balanced opinion. If the questions ask for critical analysis, you need to maintain the neutrality and balanced approach here. You can also provide the recommendations and forward suggestions for the phenomenon whichever is asked. Also, you can suggest the solutions also. For example, if the question is about discussing about the climate change and international cooperation, here you could conclude by emphasizing the need for strong global good governance, and beyond it, how can an individual play their role, and a few kind of suggestions also. Then, so this is the whole structure of answer writing presentation in exam. Other than this, you have to keep in mind following techniques and points while answering the question. First, use bullet points and subheadings. This helps in organizing thoughts clearly. Highlight key terms and thinkers. Like when you highlight the key terms and thinkers, it helps to emphasize on that. Use diagrams, charts or flowcharts. It helps in explaining complex theories. Be concise and precise. Avoid vague statement and an unnecessary elaboration. Use scholarly language. Students, here you have to maintain a formal academic tone. Try to avoid lengthy answer. You have to present answer in simpler academic manner. It should be in a systematic manner. Further, there are few common mistakes which students make in the exam. You need to avoid these mistakes. First, try to avoid the unorganized answer. Like lack of structured answer will not fetch good marks. Then, answer should not be too theoretical or too factual. It should be a balance between conceptual discussion and a real world example. It is always better to show multiple perspectives rather than a single counter argument or a single viewpoint. Explain the concept in simpler terms wherever it is necessary. Try to maintain the word limit to avoid unnecessary time on one answer, as the word limit will be already mentioned in the question paper. If it is short answer, it will be around 500 or 800 words, like that. If it is lengthy answer, it will be around 1500 words. So you have to maintain that word limit. Do not write everything which you have studied. Bombardment of information isn't required there. What you have to do there is, you should present an answer according to the question. That means the answer should be to the point. then not answering the question. Like, always revisit the question before concluding, so that you can get to know whether is there any mistake or whether have you missed any critical points. Then you can add on in the conclusion also. So before writing, like before starting your answer writing, you need to spend 1 to 2 minutes planning your answer structure, your argument, and ensure coherence. So well planned answer stands out and fetches higher marks in theory subjects and social sciences. So this is the strategy for presenting an answer. If you follow these steps, I'm sure you will fetch good marks in your exam. You try to practice with certain previous year questions and try to solve and make a presentation according to the steps I have given you. That's all for today. Bye bye, take care, thank you. We'll meet you in next tutorial.